our goal, our mission as a company is to provide families with unforgettable experiences in arena events. So imagine 20 to 40 people coming together, but it's intergenerational. It's grandparents calling their kids and their grandkids to go to a show that's half comedy, half motivation that leaves people laughing, learning, and remembering what it means to be human. So what I'm excited about is starting to do more ticketed events to work toward that.
This is one that I know you're going to love, and I know I say that a lot. There's a fully engaged, gorgeous conversation with a man by the name of Sam Demma out of Canada. And Sam is actually the youngest CSP ever to receive that award through National Speakers Association in America, but he's the youngest ever in the world. He has an incredible social media following, an incredible media platform. He has delivered more than 750 keynotes. And behind all of that, as one of our youngest ever, most accoladed speakers in the world, behind all of that is a genuinely gorgeous human being. It's a conversation that goes from past to present and all the things in between. And whilst we may be thinking that someone in their mid-20s, like, what is he really going to bring to a conversation? This conversation is extraordinary. His insights are gorgeous. And I'm pretty damn certain you're going to fall in love with this man as much as I have. As a speaker, he is genius. As human, he is generous and kind. And as a guest on the conversation, he is one of the best. Settle in, sit back, headphones in, notebook ready, because you're going to love it. Welcome, Sam Demma, to the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. This is a conversation we've been waiting for quite a while. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
You're doing excellent? Amazing. And I'm going to ask you the standard question, and that is, where in the world are you right now for people listening along?
I am currently in my basement studio in Pickering, Ontario, which is in Canada, 30 minutes east of the city of Toronto.
Oh, beautiful. And so you're actually at home at the moment?
I am, which is a blessing because I've been traveling so much, I haven't had a moment to pause.
Yeah, because the pace that you speak at is quite prolific. And so I would assume that being home is indeed a blessing. What's the kind of pace that you are running at the moment if you look back at your last year?
We book about 100 to 120 events per year, primarily in the education space. So keynotes, workshops for schools, educational conferences. Slowly, it's starting to grow outside of education, but that's where we've primarily marketed our services. Right now, I pretty much leave Sunday, come back Friday night. I'm home for a day to repack, do some laundry, package merch orders, and then leave again on Sunday morning. But it's been fun.
No rest for the wicked,
Yeah,
isn't
literally.
that what they say? Sam, you've got an incredible story. We're going to unpack quite a bit of it today in the conversation, as well as some insights from this journey that you've taken. I'm going to kind of start more recently, and that is you have been awarded Certified Speaking Professional through National Speakers Association of America. You are the youngest in the world to ever carry that off, and as a fellow CSP, I know that it's not easy to get. I came across and I think it was in your interview with the NSA, about the fact that you wrote that down as a goal, that you wanted to be the youngest ever CSP and CPAE. What was behind that, and why? How did that come up as a goal for you?
Just in case the universe and God is listening to this podcast, I also have a goal to fill out stadiums. So I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. God is listening from our words to God's ears. Let's go.
I just want to share that because a lot of what I've written down in the pages of journals back when I was 17, 18, 19 years old are now a part of my life. But back then it felt insurmountable. It felt impossible. And so if you're listening to this, I just encourage you to write the dreams down and be courageous enough to share them out loud with people in your life, because they too can become a part of your reality in the near future. The reason I set a goal to become a certified speaking professional was because I had a mentor named Sanjay Nath, who is a CSP and Hall of Fame speaker in Canada, who pulled me aside at a CAPS convention, the Canadian version of NSA. And was like, Sam, you need to aim for this. Like, it's a worthy aim. It's going to challenge you. It's going to push you. And you might be able to just beat me as the youngest CSP. And I was like, now you're giving me some competition, some inspiration.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. But whenever it came to milestones, I always in my mind went back to Jim Rohn, who said the value of a goal is not in reaching it. It's about the person you're required to become in the process of pursuing it. And so how do I have to level up my business and my mindset and my relationships? How do I have to invest in myself for me to reach this goal? And I think that was the real inspiration behind reaching for the CSP or any other professional endeavor in my life.
Mm. So you were you said 17, 18, 19. I know that that's been a really pivotal part of your life. What did have to change from that 17, 18, 19-year-old kid to the 24, 25-year-old, I think, that took out the CSP as the youngest ever CSP? What did have to change? What did you have to stare down?
One of the biggest mistakes I made was not asking for help sooner. Like finding someone who
Ooh.
was doing the stuff I wanted to do and
Yeah.
telling them that I was inspired by them and asking them for help. I had a business coach named Chris Cummins who spent 3 years with me every Tuesday on a phone call for 2 hours. And I didn't realize how big of a contribution that was for him to make and to set aside that much time, but it transformed my entire life. It transformed my entire business. You know, I had to realize that it's okay to ask for help and to find coaches and mentors and lean into them when you don't have the answers. I had to shift my philosophy around selling and understand that sales is about service to others. It's not about you making money and selling your products. It's about finding needs, recognizing needs and filling them, and understanding that if in the discovery phase of the sales journey, you find out that you can't solve the client's needs, it is still your responsibility to act as a resource and connect them to somebody who can, despite the fact that money is not going to be put in your pockets. And when I first started speaking, was so concerned with the invoicing and collecting the dollars that I kind of walked over relationships, not realizing that I was doing it at the time. So my whole philosophy around sales had to change. I needed to give myself permission to choose a market where I wanted to speak, despite the fact that most of the marketplace was telling me, don't discount
You can't
associations, don't discount corporations. Like, there's no money in schools. And those conversations happened so many times as I was a young person. And one day I had to just wake up, look at myself in the mirror and say, my journey is my journey. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. I personally believe money is a byproduct of value. And if you provide value, enough value in any marketplace, the money and opportunities follow as a byproduct.
I love this. And I also love the fact, the acknowledgement that you were given, because that was going to be one of my questions. I was assuming that you given a lot of advice. You can't make an education, they won't pay, it's a sector. Why did you choose educators? Because you've gone deep. You've gone from the students to the advisors to the school principals and the leaders and the advocates. Why did you choose educators?
I chose education, students and staff, because I felt it was the place where I made the greatest contribution. I would speak to a group of adults and see a lot of closed minds. And I'd speak to a group of students and educators and see a lot of shifts in perspective. And I just, like, in the back of my mind, I was always like, go where you're appreciated, go where you're called to make a difference. And until I speak in education and feel like I'm missing the mark, that will probably still be my main arena or place where I go to serve. Only recently, because of our marketing and online videos, has the reach expanded and we're starting to get inquiries for associations and corporations. Though if you look at my marketing, none of it has anything to do with businesses or corporate or association work. I think I also chose education because when I started this work, I was still a student. I was 17 when I did my first speech, and you can find it. I didn't take the video down. If you scroll all the way down our Instagram profile, you'll see me wearing a black dress shirt. My chaplain filmed it on an iPhone. It was a 2-minute promotional talk to get students to come volunteer with us. And so I felt like I had the most credibility and relatability with that audience. And being that I'm still 26 years old, I do still think I have that connection with that audience as well.
You kind of now you're able to like sit in the middle almost, aren't you? With the students and their staff. You talk about as well, like you just mentioned your 2-minute presentation, the first one you did, and obviously didn't go far enough down your Instagram because I didn't see you in a black dress shirt being videoed. One of the stories that stands out in everything that I looked through was you really talked about a shaky start, right? As far as your confidence, you talked about being in the shower, having to duck out to check your notes, and really being quite nervous and all that sort of stuff. Take us into that phase when you really weren't sure, you're practicing over again. What was it that you actually committed to doing to get yourself through that? Because we all have it. And sometimes when we get to a different stage, a new stage, or some slightly new content, we have it all over again. But tell us about that phase and what you committed to move yourself through it.
The first thing I feel called to share right now is that I didn't just jump off a cliff into speaking and say, I'm going to make this happen. I actually spent 2 years working a full-time job as a waiter at a restaurant where I would serve tables from 5 p.m. until sometimes 1 in the morning. And the evening shift gave me the flexibility. In the case that I booked a speech during the day, I could say yes and go and do it, even though I was a little bit tired. And that 2-year period of time gave me the chance to build up my speaking business to a point where it made financial sense to walk away from my full-time serving job and take on the world of public speaking and professional speaking. And so that was the first thing I did. The second thing I did was try my best to find a place where I could practice. I joined Toastmasters. There's Toastmasters all over the globe. I think there's Toastmasters in Australia. There's Toastmasters in the States, in Canada. It's a 1 hour a week public speaking class with a group of people. It's a safe place to practice your material. I didn't follow the curriculum. I used Toastmasters as a place to practice my stories that I wanted to tell on stage, and I would gauge the audience's reaction to make my iterations and adjustments. I reached out to all the local Rotary clubs within 100 kilometers from my house and asked if I could come speak in front of their weekly or monthly meetings. Rotary is a civic organization. I think it's also all over the globe. Those were all very safe spaces to practice, to stand in front of people and improve my public speaking. Because at the start, you suck. And it's just like, that's just the reality. It doesn't matter what skill you're building. It's not going to be great the first little while. And so the most important thing is to put in those reps and finding the safe places to practice, working the job so I can still financially make ends meet, were some of the things that I did, along with just showing up. I think a big part of the battle at the start is showing up despite the fact that externally things aren't changing. You're going to be calling organizations and schools and trying to get your name out there and find opportunities. And you're going to hear no hundreds upon hundreds of times compared to the amount of yeses you receive. And to have the grit and the perseverance to keep going is the biggest challenge. And if you can overcome that, someone once told me the first 10 speeches are the hardest to book, then the next 100 are a lot easier.
That ties in as well to you talk about, you decided to just start with Google and just start moving through the pages on Google until you got a yes. What was the hardest no that you got along the way when you were first starting? Like, what was the one that really hit you, the hardest no, before you got a great yes?
I think it's just the multitude of emails that respond back saying things like, take me off your list, unsubscribe, stop emailing me. I flat out had decision makers tell me I'm too young or not qualified or don't have the right qualifications to come speak in front of their students. Those ones hurt. Those ones hit home a lot because I still was doubting myself at the start, and I still do today. And I was very young. I'm young now. I was very young then. And so when someone did tell me you're too young, in the back of my head, maybe I felt like that person was a little bit right. And it stopped me from boldly sitting in my magic and my value. The other thing that I didn't mention that you mentioned that was really helpful is I don't know where the inspiration or foresight came from, but I had the idea to just search youth speaker on Google and call everybody I could find on the first 5 or 6 pages. And many of the keynote speakers have their cell phones in the contact section of their website. So I called a couple of them and they answered. And I asked them a ton of intelligent questions. And no matter where you're at in your journey, that's one thing you can always offer another professional speaker or anybody. Your curiosity If you ask an intelligent question, tells the person on the other end of the phone call or conversation, this person's done their research. They care about what I have to share. They've come prepared. I ended up having 7 phone calls, and I still have the notes. They're labeled game-changing calls. Some of the speakers are no longer speakers. They work, one of them, Ryan, works in the tech space, but many of them still are and have become my colleagues and friends. Those phone calls gave me so much self-belief I can't even explain.
How did they give you so much self-belief? What was it that they instilled in you?
If I went to my uncle and I said, Uncle George, I'm going to be a professional speaker. He's never delivered a speech.
The family response.
He's never delivered a speech. He's never been paid to speak before. He has no idea what I'm talking about. In fact, I'm half Italian, half Greek. Being loud and obnoxious and like rowdy is a part of our culture. I always joke and say,
so it's like, what are you going to get paid for that for?
My grandma would be like, Sam, I'll pay you to stop talking. What are you talking about? You know? And so, you know, when I talk to a speaker on the phone who's been doing this for 15 years and I'm still this guy who's not even sure if it's possible, and they tell me on the other end of the phone, yeah, I just got off stage, spoke to 5,000, you know, students at this massive statewide leadership conference. I do about 80 of these a year. You can absolutely do it. It's like, that is invaluable. This person just validated what felt like a crazy idea that wasn't possible. And so I think that is really the thing that I took away the most from those phone calls, was this realization that I can do it. Like, it's not crazy. It is a possibility. It's just about time in the game, putting in the reps, asking the right questions, and taking the action that they suggest. And that was the other thing. It gave me a roadmap. They told me what courses to look into, what books I could start reading, what association I could join. And I took all that information and acted on it as fast as I could, and then returned back and shared my learnings. And it started these really cool mentor-mentee relationships.
I think that's actually key. What was it behind? Why did you go back to them with what you took from it and what you learned from what they gave you?
One time I was hiking a mountain in Kelowna with one of my business mentors named Dan Martell. And I asked him the question, if you were me and I was you, what question would you ask me? And what would you be trying to get away from this hike up the mountain? Because, you know, I flew out here to spend time with you and I really don't know what to ask you. I'm very intimidated by you and so inspired. And Dan was like, Sam, I would just try and get one actionable idea and I would act on it as fast as I can. And then I would circle back with what happened. And he said, the reason I would do that is because it shows the mentor, wow, this person's coachable. They took the nugget of advice. They acted on it fast. Now they're telling me what happened. It encourages the mentor to continue investing in that relationship. And that's really stuck with me. I think at a young age, I did it more naturally because I was an athlete. And in soccer, it's just built into you improving and developing. Your coach tells you to do something, you do it. You work out at a gym. You start increasing the amount on your back squat because someone coached you on how to properly warm up, or progressive overload in the gym. And I think it more naturally happened in my business because of that. But then later in my career with conversations like Dan, it made me realize that's what it means to be coachable, to take an idea, to implement it, and to circle back. I've had so many conversations with people who want to speak, and maybe 1 in every 100 come back around after our hour-long conversation and have done anything of the stuff that I've shared with them. And it's what makes the difference. I think that's what makes the difference.
Is that tied into one of the quotes? And I saw lots of quotes when I was like looking around all of your stuff on Instagram, but the one that I actually landed on that I loved is, and I think it's only fairly recent, was everyone wants a secret to success. Here it is. Stop looking for secrets and do the work. I might have burst out laughing because I felt like you're inside my head when you were saying that, when I was reading it. Where does that come from? Does it come from experiences like that? Does it come from people actually saying, you know, how did you get so lucky? Where does that quote and that statement come from?
Most of the time, our brain is operating in the hypothetical. Well, would it really work if I filmed 1,000 outreach videos? Like, that's a lot of time and it's a lot of effort and energy. Well, the only way you're going to find out is if you do the work. Like,
do the work.
We're deciding in our mind if the strategy is going to work or not, which at some point in your career is important. But when you're at the beginning and nothing's rolling, nothing's moving, we need to put reps up on the board. Well, if I get a basketball coach who's going to help me fix my shot, grab a basketball, go to the gym, and shoot the ball 1,000 times a day. Like, we can figure it out, but we have to start moving. I
Yeah,
think
we
that's
have
where
to
it
get
comes
into
from.
motion, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely have to get into motion. It's one of the things I say to people all the time. Motion begets motion. If you get moving, you'll be really surprised. You can't have a field of possibility open up in front of you. Don't take the first step, right? And so I think that's why it resonated. With your Instagram following, your social media following, and your media presence, you've got quite a profile and people absolutely adore you. How did you go about growing that following? Was it deliberate or was it simply showing up?
No, definitely not simply showing up. It starts that way, though, and that's how it started for me. In fact, in 2023, I made the decision on our first cross-Canada speaking tour. I got my grandma's minivan. We drove it across the country doing 87 events in 3 months. It was crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was me, 3 of my friends, and one of them, Cross, was responsible for filming and publishing a video every day. I said, we're going to put up a video every day. And every day, Cross and I would post a video. And he'd look at me and go, Sam, today's going to be the day a video goes viral. And it never did.
in 90 days across the country.
90 videos, 90 days, none of them went crazy or blew up. And it's funny because we always say, and if not today's, it'll be tomorrow's. And we did this every day. And Cross now makes content full time. If you search Cross Novia, you can see his whole profile. It's really cool. He's blown up. He's doing his thing. But that's when I started trying to figure out media. That was 2023. We're almost in 2026. Our first video didn't garner attention until May of 2025. 6 months ago?
I love that. So that's like 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years,
almost,
basically. 2 year time frame.
Almost 3. Almost 3 years.
Wow.
Of consistently trying to put out content and make it work and it just not working. And in January 2025, just almost a year ago now, my mentor said, Sam, stop thinking about it like marketing and start thinking about it like you're a media company. Because people think about marketing and they just want to outsource stuff. But if you're a media company and you're the talent, you're going to start investing in it differently. And for him, he said, you have to go pro. And to go pro meant pulling dollars out of your wallet and putting time on your calendar. So every day there should be time dedicated to media and there should be money being invested. And if those two things are true, you're moving in the correct direction. And so in January, I made the decision, I'm going to hire a staff. And I hired a young man who was traveling with me everywhere. And he was filming everything. And we were putting out 2 videos a day. And it was not working. And we went all the way up until mid-February. So like about a month and a half. And he turned around and was like, Sam, traveling with you has inspired me so much. I'm going to move back home and start my own business. I was like...
Great.
Amazing. I'm proud of you. And I'm happy I have that effect on people, but it was frustrating. And I had this like really heartfelt moment after that unfolded where it felt like God was just testing me and being like, do you really want this? Is this really important? And I made the decision that from that day forward, I would not do a speech that was not filmed. Meaning I will carry an extra backpack with me to every show and set up a camera in the back of the room and ask a volunteer to turn the camera left and right and push the record button. And that's what I started doing. And started March, had a young man named Matt who would take that footage and chop up 2 clips from it and post them online each day. March, nothing went viral. April, nothing happened. May, 20-something, our first video got like 100,000 views. And from mid-May until now, we've added just over 1 million followers across all platforms.
That's extraordinary. So what was the shift? Do you think it was because you were doing this, it was actually being drawn from you being real, live, on stage, doing your thing, delivering your messages, rather than creating and curating some content?
I think a couple things. Number one, I made a decision everything was going to start getting filmed. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Sam, what's the strategy? Number one, you need more content. You need to film more things. For example, I don't have it set up right now, but during this podcast, imagine we both had additional cameras off to the side filming us on a 45-degree angle. Do you have that?
My team can't listen to this. They've been telling me for 6 months we have to do that.
It sounds crazy, but you and I would both have 10 to 15 clips of content if we were doing that. what it looked like for me was investing in a studio. I now have a space, 25-minute drive from my house, where I sit down, there's a beautiful setup, and I can actually film tons of content or invite people over to make content.
Mm.
And so the first bottleneck to solve is not having enough video. Make a commitment to filming more stuff. After that, it's about giving content and media the same level of attention to detail and focus as you give your speaking business. For me, what that means is every day I meet with my editor, Matt, and we look over the videos we posted yesterday, and we literally rewatch them as he shares his screen and stop them and go, that could have been cut out from the video. It's filler details. That sounds like a repeat of what I just said 6 seconds ago. We're probably going to have retention drop off at that point in the video because they're hearing the same thing twice. Why did that video perform so well? Oh, wow. It seems like when I start a video with a hook that includes a location and an action. I was in Sacramento on an airplane. I was in Michigan on a bus. Video performs better. Oh, now, so we did that for 6 months and started coming up with a list of assumptions. When we assume when this happens in a video, it performs better or it performs worse. Now we have a framework in which we edit our videos. And so, number 1, film more content. Number 2, give the content its respect by reviewing it and improving it and iterating it the same way you would a keynote. And then number 3, put out volume without being attached to the outcome. We've been posting content consistently since January, but then before that, since 2023.
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Yeah, nothing happened. So if you're listening to this, understand you can put the groundwork down today, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going to start returning in terms of that investment of time, money, energy, and effort. But I can tell you, when it starts, you're going to be so thankful that you gave it that time and attention, because it truly unlocks so many things that you didn't even know existed in your business.
And that was going to be my next question. Like, that is adding incredible volume to your followers, your exposure, to the platforms that you're on. And I love the fact we've been having a lot of conversation here about, I think every speaker actually needs to be a media company. And as a training business, we need to be a media company, right? So we need to be a media platform. And so I really love that perspective. But adding so much volume, once you hit that J curve and it started to really accelerate, what has that unlocked for you?
Perceived value has changed so dramatically. In fact, at the start of my career, even back in January, I was in my mind thinking we're on the higher end when it comes to hiring a keynote speaker in the education space, because schools don't have lots of money and we're already pretty high up there. And then after our media started exploding, clients are showing up on calls and laughing at the investments I was sharing. They're like, I thought it was going to be way more. And I was like, oh, wow.
You're like, okay.
I was like, okay. And I'll tell you, it's really weird when people start believing in you more than you believe in yourself. Like people start valuing you more than you value yourself. What a fascinating experience. That's the first thing that changed. The perceived value of our work and brand, despite the fact that it was the same before our videos blew up as it is now, has dramatically changed. The second thing it unlocked for us is a client's familiarity with the messaging. I hop on sales calls and I start explaining some of the messaging, and they start laughing and smiling and referencing the videos. I've had people through the whole sales call go, Sam, I've watched all your videos. Like, stop. Like, we're ready to move forward. Like, tell us the options. I'm like, wow,
So they're pre-sold, which is extraordinary, right?
They're pre-sold at a higher perceived value. We're not even doing sales anymore. We're just taking orders. That's like,
That's nice.
And it's not just, this sounds very weird because it's me and I'm talking about myself. I'm hoping people understand the opportunity. Like, please, I'm not sharing this to be like, oh, look at us, we're doing great stuff. I'm sharing this because 6 months ago, I would have never comprehended this to be a possibility in my business, in my life. And I truly believe media is what made it possible. What else changed? The way other big brands perceive collaborating with us. It's a lot easier to reach out to another massive brand or company and do a podcast or a form of collaboration. We've had companies reach out because they want to do sponsored ads on our page, which never would have happened in the past. We've added a new revenue line of YouTube and Facebook ads. So once you start amassing,
that's nice.
Yeah, we're monetized on YouTube, monetized on Facebook. People are now paying us to market our services and put out our videos. Like, that's really cool and different.
that kind of probably feels a little bit nuts to people at the start of their career. So I knew about the YouTube monetization. Now I'm going to go and check the Meta.
Yes, you can turn it on.
Yeah. Amazing. That's with the video content, YouTube, Meta, all of those sorts of places. You've also got a lot of mainstream media.
Yes.
Has that been a definitive ploy and play? And when did that start?
I guess from the start of my career, I had one really challenging experience with a speaking agency that completely turned me off to doing work with agencies, which is probably not great because it kept a couple doors closed for me that I would have never been able to access by myself. But the good thing that came of that scenario is it forced me to believe that I could figure it out. And if someone else was doing it, I could do it too. And I saw all these speakers getting on the news, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have $20,000 or $10K or $5K to hire a publicist and pitch me at all these news places. So I started searching, like, how do you get on the news? What is the process? And I found that almost everything that I could find said you have a press release, which is a simple 1-page or 2-page document that explains the story you're pitching, the who, what, where, when, why, and why you're the right person to talk about it and how it connects with their audience. And you pitch these segment producers. And a segment producer or the producer is the person on the news show that puts together the schedule and the guests and makes all those decisions. And so I searched, I did the research, I wrote up my first press release. The first press release ever was about a garbage initiative Dylan and I had started where we were picking up trash 1 hour once a week as high school students. And we had this idea to station 150 bags of trash in front of our old high school. It was stuff we'd collected over the past 4 months just to show how single-use plastics are bad for the environment. And it was like this big project. And so we wrote our first press release and we started emailing all these segment producers. And we found them by searching the news channel and then segment producer after on Google. And we got our first 2 or 3 news clips. And from that moment forward, I always believed if I have a newsworthy story, which is something that's timely, relatable, and it has a unique perspective, I can pitch it to the news. And I've never stopped.
I really love that we do quite a bit of work with media prep over here. And you described as well, you had a visual, right? You put these 150 garbage bags in front of the school. So part of a media package is actually having visuals that they can use. You also, though, have done a crossover that's quite interesting. I can understand the newsworthiness of that project and what you did with it was pick waste. That project became pick waste. I can understand the appeal with that. You are now getting mainstream media speaking into consistent small action and speaking into beliefs and the power of beliefs. There's a lot of noise in the marketplace around that. So how have you made that transition to making that newsworthy enough that not only do people bring you on, you pitch well, they bring you on, but I've watched a lot of the clips, they love you. How have you managed to do that?
I think the first thing we've tried to do, and I've tried to do, we have a small team of 4, is be so ridiculously easy to work with when it comes to media or any clients. When they're ready to move forward with a story, we share with them a list of 15 questions they could ask and give bullet pointed ideas on how we're going to answer it. So they have a complete understanding of what the segment could look like. I share a folder filled with B-roll, like speaking footage they can chop into their news segments to make it super simple and easy. We always have a full press release that we share no matter what the story is that we're pitching. I've shipped our books to the studio so they could read them or reference them or have them on set. I often bring gifts when I go in, like a box of donuts or Take 12 coffee. These are like little simple things, but they all add up and leave an impression on people. I also don't pitch any and every idea. I really select and wait until I think I have something they'll actually enjoy talking about, like the launch of a new book or a back to school campaign that I think makes sense. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that have helped. And then when I'm on set, just 2 things: storytell and be yourself. People love stories, so tell a story and give yourself permission to just have fun and be you. And I think that's what connects with people the most.
Yeah, I think all of those small things you talked about, though, would explain the rapport that I see.
Yeah.
Right? The ease and the comfort that they have with speaking with you. That's the media side. When it comes to your speeches, because you've done, 750 or something now and climbing?
Yeah.
I did actually read that stat when I was, because someone first connected us and I was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm like way older than you. And I'm like, and I've probably done that across my entire career, but not by the age of 26. I'm more than double your age now. But I'm thinking about, because your presentations are really high energy, really engaging, and you do change them up a little bit as you go. But I think there's something, it feels to me as a trainer and a coach watching everything that I've been able to find, you do follow a specific framework, right? It feels like there's an underpinning framework through that. Could you share that with us at all? Because it's, one of the things I talk to emerging speakers all the time is your story is not enough. Your teaching is not enough. You've got to move people from where they are now to where they want to be, to where they never expected to be. And that takes framework and structure and things like that. And it feels as though that impact you have is because there is a consistency in how you approach. Would you mind unpacking that a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. The first thing a mentor shared with me that impacted the framework I follow when it comes to speaking is to think about you're performing like a chocolate covered almond, that the almond is the message, but if you don't wrap it in chocolate, no one wants to eat it. And I remember immediately just thinking like, I love raw almonds. You're a liar, sir. but it makes so much sense. Having a simple, straightforward, powerful idea is not enough. You need to take that idea and wrap it up in stuff people want, which is humor, entertainment, storytelling, audience interaction. For me, what that looks like is during my keynote, I might share a 5 to 7 minute story that's funny, engaging, and relatable to earn the right to slow down for 2 minutes and share the purpose or the point or the thing I want people to take away from it. When it comes to the actual storytelling on stage, problem story and takeaway, or problem story point, is something that I follow a lot. Like, what is the challenge? What is the story connected to that challenge? And what is the point or the takeaway message people can leave thinking about? When people watch our videos on social media, they probably see so many different stories that they're overwhelmed. What is he talking? Like, there's so much pieces of content. And that's because we have built in a segment in my keynote where I'm creating a forcing function to tell new material almost every time I speak. So 45 of the 60 minutes might be the same, but this week I'm going to test out these 2 new stories, the back rib philosophy, and I'm going to test out Ed at Hawthorne Valley Golf Club. And these are like 2 little new stories that I'm going to test and see how they land. Otherwise, like most keynote speakers, I do have routine stories that I know connect with my audience and help to make sure I deliver on what was promised. But giving yourself that freedom to test new stuff is so important. Some of our best moments on stage came from giving myself freedom to use different material and to break the mold of some of the stuff I'd been talking about for so many years.
So when you do test things out, and I love that, because we talk about, a 15, 20% what we call local content change, right? Which is obviously the chunk that you can put that in, or if you're traveling to a different country, you can make it more relevant. But that consistency is what leads to the referability and the rebookings, all that sort of stuff. But tell me about, in that testing of content, in that kind of, that 15-minute chunk that you use or throughout.
Yeah.
What's been the most surprising thing that landed, like really blew your expectations and really surprised you with how well it landed?
I told a story about meeting this student in Kenya and then trying to learn their language and then coming back home to Canada and then meeting someone 2 days after landing who spoke that person's language, and it blew their mind. And this one little story that was new a couple months ago is now one of our most popular stories of all time. Like, I think on YouTube has 13 million views on one of our short videos. And like, I hop on calls with clients and they're like, oh, are you going to tell the Kenya story? And I'm like, isn't that fascinating? That was a new story, one that I was afraid to share, one that I was worried wouldn't connect. And it's connecting better than almost all of the stuff that I've been talking about for years. And so it's crazy.
Do you think that, though, like sometimes I think the most extraordinary stories are the everyday moments, right?
Yes.
And even
Yes.
though, yes, it's Kenya and yes, you were
Yep.
traveling, but it's literally like meeting someone and wanting to be able to communicate with them and not being able to do that, having to learn and fumble. And then that serendipitous. Do you think it's because there's a lot of everyday in that?
I think it's 2 things. I think you hit it on the nail. It's everyday moments, so it's relatable to everyone. The
Yeah.
second part of that is it's authentic. It's so authentic because it's one of the like some of the videos that I posted that done really well. It's actually the first time I've told the story, and
Yeah.
I haven't made up in my mind how I'm supposed to tell the story. I'm kind of workshopping it with the audience live based on how they're reacting. And I think that's the crazy dichotomy with storytelling. It's like you have this rehearsed thing and it works really well, but you're afraid to tell this new thing. But if you build the courage to tell this new thing, it might connect better than the stuff you've rehearsed. And
Do you think that's also because you're not actually testing whole new keynotes? You're doing like
little
micro moments
chunks.
that you're testing a new thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 to 3 minute
Yeah.
stories. This does not apply to a full
Yeah.
speech. I think that would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
But if you give yourself give yourself little chunks to test out the new stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like I have one more example. Last May, I did a book launch and we launched our kids' book, Be Someone's Taco. And I told
Which I love, by the way.
thank you so much. We did maybe 4 or 5 new stories in that keynote, and people loved it. And I think they loved it because I was experiencing it the first time just as they were. So when I was sharing the stories, it was so real and raw and authentic. And yeah, I'll never go back to just doing the same thing for a long period of time. Like I went probably a good 3-4 years delivering the same keynote to different audiences. And um,
I'm going to ask you a question about that, though, because one of the things we've discovered is breakthrough means actually the same thing
yeah,
over and over again with 5 to 10% change.
yep,
So I say to people, here's the paradox of this whole industry is that to get your breakthrough
yeah,
and then to create demand, it has to be basically the same over and over again, just getting better and better at the delivery. But then once you break through, so for example, what's happened for you in the last 6 months to 1 year, once you get the breakthrough, then you become creative again, right? And then you can go a little bit off script. Have you found that to reflect the truth of your journey, or would you challenge any of that at all?
I think the reps are what gave me the ability to be comfortable on stage and build a brand. And they're so important. I don't think you should shift your messaging or tell different stories every day of your career when you're just starting. But once you reach a point where you are comfortable on stage, you have repeat bookings, you're not as worried about the bottom line of your business or keeping your lights on. You've built the skill of being comfortable on stage and telling stories. Why rob yourself of the opportunity to pull from rich new experiences in your life that could be helpful to your
Yeah.
audiences? I personally wish I did it a little sooner. I wish I did it a little sooner, but I do believe there's a lot of value in the repetition.
But also, too, I mean, I think we all feel like we could do certain things sooner in hindsight, right? It's like, oh, I could have done that sooner and had this kind of impact. But I do love that thing about the everyday moments. I don't speak much anymore. I'm training others. But I have a keynote that I trialed towards the end of last year and we'll bring in properly next year. And it's a very big story at the start of it, which is about actually frustration of contract by Reese Witherspoon in a global gag order. So it's a very big story, gets the headlines and gets attention. But the story that comes immediately after that is actually being in the US, bouncing around the back of a truck in Monument Valley and having this conversation with this woman who suddenly realized that she'd been cancelled by her friends. And it was just this really quiet conversation realization. And I literally threw it in at the last minute. So I'm talking about this, threw it in the last minute because I was like, I need something that brings it back to the people in the room, not just, most people can't say they've got a global gag order from Reese Witherspoon, right? So I just went, what's something I can do? And that is the story that almost a year later that people still remember, right? It's the everyday moment. So I got their attention with the headline, but it was dropping that everyday moment. And so for people listening to both of us talking about this, what would you say to people about their story selections?
There's a book I read called Storyworthy that really helped me find more stories that I think could be helpful to everyone listening. It's written by a gentleman named Matthew Dix, and he shares a piece of homework called Homework for Life. And he recommends that people at the end of each day pull out their journal and they ask themselves, what was the most story-worthy moment today? And then you keep a running document, and it's called your story. I call it the story bank. And it just has the date and then a reflection on a thing that could be a story. And that's how I've captured and collected my stories. What I would tell people is notice in life when you get excited, when you get hopeful, when you get emotional. Because if something in your life's making you feel, if you share it on stage, it's probably going to make other people feel too. So yeah, journaling, homework for life, and being in tune and present with your emotions as you move through life. And when something moves you, write it down.
Yeah, love that advice. We talk about story catching all the time. I have a note on my phone which is like endless.
Nice.
It probably actually needs to be broken up a little bit. One of the things that like even though you've actually been very prolific on media and social media, you're not always a fan of being constantly switched on, right? With social media and obviously scrolling and things like that. You're very clear about things that are a distraction.
Yeah.
What made you decide to actually manage that as a media channel rather than a personal connection, so to speak?
I mean, to this day, I struggle with technology and using it effectively. I mean, we do a great job, but maintaining my boundaries with it has been challenging, especially as our platforms have been growing. We get messages from it's like so many people about they've read our books and they're a mom, and I just it's so cool to see the impact and read that I feel like I'm constantly reaching for my phone. But I think I started to realize in my early 20s that if I do this, I can't do that. Like there's an opportunity cost to everything. If I
Mm,
spend 8 hours on social media, I'm not working on my sales. If I'm
mm.
spending, uh, all this time that I could be spending on other things, there is something I'm going to miss out on. And so we're going to miss out on something. Being selective about what you're going to miss out on is very important. I would rather be very successful, but miss out on other people thinking I am. And
Yeah,
that was a
love
reflection
that.
at the start of my career where I took a full year off social media. I didn't post anything online and instead spent all the time calling decision makers and building relationships. And I grew my business despite not being online. I then got to a certain point in my career where I realized not being online and building a media presence was now limiting me. And we kind
Yeah.
of reversed the roles. And yeah,
I really want to actually dig into that just for a moment because one of my things is to get started, you don't need all of the
no,
things, right? You don't need the social media. You don't need to be posting on every platform. You don't need the perfect videos. You do need some video these days. You don't need the perfect videos. You do need a willingness to actually reach out to people. And you do need a willingness to actually take whatever you can find. And if your calendar, I say, if your calendar's got white space, go do the thing, right? Would you agree with that? I mean, there is obviously a tipping point where you need the demand, but you don't, where you need the digital and the social and the video. Do you think, do you think you can still get moving without all of that if you're willing to actually do the reps and pick up the phone?
I didn't start growing my business exponentially with media until March, May, but I've been speaking for 6 years. I had a growing,
Yeah.
repeatable speaking business without I had a website built by myself. We just got a new website done that looks very professional, and I hired someone to do
The
it.
website's really sexy, can I just
Thank
say? So
you.
that was not the one you did.
That's
That's not the
not
one you did
mine.
for 6
That
years
was the
though.
one they did for me. If like my website up until that one was what I built on WordPress. It was not sexy. It was simple. It had the basic information that you need to know. So I reaffirm what you believe and what you just shared. My biggest mentor has a terrible looking website, has no social footprint, has a massive business. And it's like, if you do good by people, you over deliver on expectations, you have a solid product, and you're consistently making it better. The things I just shared and you and I talked about are amplifiers. But the
Yeah.
consistent systems and outreach and good business practice are your fire. And media
Yeah.
and marketing and beautiful website, that's just fuel. But if you don't already have a fire, all
Mm.
those things are complete distractions because if you pour gas on a piece of wood, there's no reaction.
No, there's absolutely none. When I say this statement, this is a mantra I kind of live by. Be so good they come to find you.
Yeah.
What comes up for you when I say that?
We have a value at our company. We have six values. One of them's we call remarkable. And remarkable means like if you look up the definition, it's something worthy of remark, meaning it's so good that they have to talk about it. And in business, one of the practices I was taught was to make sure you ask for the referral. If you've done a good job, ask for the referral. What if instead of asking that, we ask ourselves, how do I do such an exceptional job? I don't have to ask. They're going to talk about it anyway. And like
That's
that's
exactly my
that's
thing.
the goal. It's like
Yeah.
be so good that they all come to find you. And if you can do one event and it turns into three, marketing is irrelevant. It's like you will never
Now,
be, it's not irrelevant, but you'll never be out of business opportunities to serve.
for all my people listening who know my work, I swear I didn't pay Sam to say that. So I talk all the time about you've got to hit the trifecta. So we have a triangle, and the top of the triangle is the trifecta, which is every time you speak, you are booked, rebooked, and referred to a booking. And that is litmus test, right? If
Yeah.
you can do that every time you speak, then there's an accelerant. But guys listening along who know my work really well, I did not pay Sam to say that.
That's awesome.
It's been quite a journey. So from where you first started and now you're like 750 plus in from a speaking perspective, then there's all the speaking that you do from media and content and all that sort of stuff. What's been the biggest shift for you with the way that you speak?
I think the first little while I felt like I had to prove my worth and value when I stood on stage.
Yeah.
The way I delivered the stories and really emphasized the lessons and points. And now I feel like I can go, know that I've practiced and rehearsed, stand on stage, share stories with simple lessons attached to them, and just know that it's my experience and it's going to connect with others, but I don't have to shove it down people's throats. And that's how I felt at the start. I had to like really emphasize the message and the takeaway, and now I feel like a friend of the audience who's standing up there to laugh with them and have fun with them and learn with them, as opposed to teaching them stuff.
So that evolution, because obviously you were able to create referrals and get further work all the way through, but that evolution, has that changed the feedback you get from people when you come off stage? Like if you think back to those first year or so, and then the way that you've changed, so you're now just like with the audience and you're sharing with them and you're part of them, has that changed the feedback and the depth of feedback that you get?
Yeah. People will come up and tell me, you have a gift and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. When I've started leaning more into just being myself and having fun, I've started to notice that other people are calling what we do a performance, which is hilarious because internally that's what we call it, as opposed to a presentation or a speech. So people are recognizing that there's a difference to the feeling they're getting when being a part of it, so much so that they mention it. I guess one of the shifts too is a mentor told me when you have fun on stage, you are subconsciously giving the audience permission to have fun too. If you are stressed out on stage, the audience is subconsciously feeling like they need to be stressed out too. But how do we give ourselves permission to have fun when we're also stressed preparing for this type of work? That's the challenge. And it's like when you've done the rehearsal and you've practiced, but you also give yourself that permission, like this is supposed to be fun, like practice, rehearse, but go have fun. Like I think that's been a big part of the shift too.
Yeah. Is there anything that you feel, you've obviously had some great mentors and advisors along the way. Has there been anything that you've heard consistently around you, possibly not from your mentors, but like these myths that exist in the industry? Like you have to be this and you have to be that and you have to have this and you have to do that. If you think about all of that that's swirling around out there, what's one myth from a speaking perspective that you'd love to blow up?
Keynote speaking is not a business. You are a high paid freelance artist. And I mean, if you want to grow your company to multi-million dollars a year as a keynote speaker, you can. You absolutely can. But if you're
Can you repeat that again? Because we need people to hear that.
Yeah, I think people have always told me, if you're a keynote, you do not have a scalable business. You can't sell it, so it's not a business. And those are people whose goals in their life are to build a scalable enterprise that doesn't involve their likeness or their name. And that's great to have that goal. But if your goal is to do 50 events a year and make a couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million, it is very much a possibility for you. And you're allowed to live a different life than the people around you. I think I heard that so often that I was like, oh, I'm loving my work, but it's not a business. Like I'm just a high paid freelance artist. Like this isn't scalable. Who cares? It doesn't have to be. Like, is that what you want? If not, go have fun and live your life,
Yeah. I love that perspective. Your big thing is around beliefs and consistent small actions and things like that. Right now, if we look at this point in time, what is the belief that you're leaning on? And then the second part of that question is, what is the one small consistent action that you've committed to for the next 90 days?
Oh, the belief is based on a book we just read as a team. So we have a small team of 4, and we do a book club. Every 3 weeks we read a book and then we talk about it. And we recently read a book called 10x is easier than 2x. And
Thank you, Benjamin Hardy, isn't it?
yeah, and it's so good.
Yeah.
The argument is essentially that if you aim for a 2x goal, it forces your brain to look at the past and try and do twice as much as you've done. But if you aim for a 10x goal, you can't do 10 times the amount you're doing because it's practically impossible if your calendar's already full. So it forces you to ask yourself, what do I have to let go of in order to succeed, to reach this 10x outcome? Because the calendar needs to look 80% different if you're going to 10x where you are now. And the challenging reality is you're going to have to let go of some of the stuff that brought you to where you are today. And so the belief I'm thinking about or leaning on is like, it's okay to let go of the things that have brought you, where you are now, Sam, because I'm letting go of stuff and it's pretty uncomfortable and uncertain right now. So that's something I'm carrying in my backpack at the moment. The small, consistent action that we're doing on a daily basis is definitely media related, and it has been for the past couple of months. But just consistently putting out content and having those daily meetings with Matt. I've just started writing another book. And so spending time on my laptop each day, just chopping up ideas and writing the manuscript.
Love that. If we're thinking about, we spoke before we got on this call this conversation that, a lot of our audience is emerging and aspiring. If someone listening at that stage, they're looking for breakthrough, they're getting some traction, but not quite breakthrough, what is one small, consistent or micro action that you would recommend that they actually start looking to do?
One of the micro actions that changed my business, especially in the early stages, was sending video emails instead of written ones. I downloaded a software called Vidyard, Vidyard, and it allows you to film videos and then embed them in the emails you send. I have booked so much business and got many opportunities because I show up in my clients' inboxes differently than most of the other speakers who are just writing written emails.
And we're speakers, right?
Yeah, it's like you're showcasing your product in the outreach. And I'll tell you, that also forced me to realize, wow, my space doesn't look that great. Like I want to charge at the time more money, but I don't look like I'm worth it right now. So even putting myself on camera forced me to realize I need to upgrade some stuff. I needed to get a sound barrier, So I could put music in my videos, and when I crack this silly joke, I could play laughing sounds. and I got a nice camera and a microphone and a light, and now I feel like a professional. Because I feel like a professional, I'm going to show up like one, and hopefully my clients will feel that way too. So all that to say, the daily habit could be filming 5 to 10 video messages to potential clients over email or social media in the DMs, but just starting more conversations in a professional way.
I love that so much. There's a lot of, if we look at your digital footprint, it is all about small, consistent action and beliefs. And you've got some great stories around, your backpack and the tacos and all that sort of stuff. But I'm kind of curious about one other thing, and that is, when did that small, consistent action, and there's an origin story. I didn't want to talk about it too much today because you can find it everywhere online with where that came from. But when did small, consistent actions stop actually being advised and become your operating system?
That's a good question. I told you at the start that I have all these journals that I've been writing in. In fact, let me just grab a stack of them real quick. This is like a quarter of them, okay?
I love this. I have journals everywhere.
Yes. So
kindred spirit.
I have always, and I don't know if it was when I was an athlete, but I've always just felt the need to write down my dreams and reflect on the day. And there were moments where I felt like booking a speech a month was impossible. Like I had a chart on my bedroom wall with all the months of the year, and if I booked one in one of the months, I would literally celebrate. My first goal was to make $10,000 in a year. Like, this is not enough money to live.
I love that.
And And I crack open these
Not enough
journals.
money to live, but it was a bedroom and you're at home. So it
Yes.
probably almost worked.
No, it was okay. And the moment small, consistent actions became a way of life and not just something I talked about is I think it was maybe one of the first times I cracked open an old journal and read about this life that felt impossible that I was currently living. And I reflected on what made this possible. And it was all these little decisions and all these people that I met and the consistent application of effort, even when stuff wasn't working. And it's happened so many times now that it's just become a belief and something that's imprinted in my brain that if you want to bring it to life, you can. It just takes time, effort, energy, and new education.
Yeah, I love that. You have this world now that you've created small steps at a time, and you've got some incredible mentors. You've dropped a couple of names.
Yeah.
Who has been your greatest inspiration up until this point?
There's multiple. I would say if I had to choose one, my family and my grandparents have
Yeah.
I mean, I made the joke earlier, I can't ask my uncle, how do I become a keynote speaker? But I can look at any of my family to teach me what it means to be a good human being and to work
Mm,
hard and to have passion and pride in your last name and the way you show up. Like those are intangibles that I believe
yeah.
are going to help me succeed no matter what business I choose to pursue. So,
Mm.
my family, my grandfathers, my grandmas, my parents are to this day some of my biggest inspirations.
You talk about your grandfather quite often
Yeah.
and the inspiration that you get from him. But take me into the heart of Sam. Why does your grandfather matter to you so much? Not just the story we see. Where's your heart for your grandfather? Share that with us.
I just remember him sitting at the side of the soccer field, like during when I was a kid, and he had his camouflage chair, and he didn't speak the greatest English, so he wouldn't say much, but he would just sit there and he'd have this big smile on his face, and
Mhm.
he carried so much pride for his family, and it
Yeah.
was felt like I felt it, and
Mm.
and he always put people before himself, always. Like there was one time he was passing away from cancer, and we went over to visit, and he was in pain. Like he had a thing drilled to his forehead. I don't know what it was for, but it looked scary. And as little kids, we were like, "What's going on with Nono Sam?" And he came downstairs despite pain and no sleep and not eating food. And he starts cracking jokes and pops his dentures out and he folds his lips in. And me and my siblings and my sister are just laughing our asses off. And he just he just wanted to bring joy and love to the people that he cared about. And I've always wished he could sit in the audience and listen to his speech because we have the same name. I feel so connected to him, and just there's this desire to make my grandfather proud from all the sacrifices he's made and the way he showed up for us. And I genuinely just believe I come from a special family. Like it sounds funny to say out loud, but that's how I feel. Like,
No, it's actually, I wish more people were able to say that out loud. When it comes to your grandfather, and yes, you carry his name, what else do you carry of him within you?
his attitude, the guy didn't allow anything to stop him from showing up and moving forward. His work ethic, like that's one of the things I'm most proud of. And sometimes people will tell me it's unhealthy, like you work so much. Why are you working so much? And I'm starting to build great balance in my life. But if you knew who I came from, it would make sense. Like my grandfather and my dad would make an arrangement for him to come help with some yard work the next morning at 7 a.m. And my dad would wake up at 6:30 and look out the window and the job's done because my grandfather showed up at
Yeah.
4 in the morning with a shovel and finished it before he woke up and is knocking on the door at 6:30 asking for a coffee so he can get to his next job. And his generosity is something I carry within me. He would farm tons of vegetables and not tell you and just show up at your house and drop a box of squash on your front porch, and you'd open the door and you would just know, oh, Nono San came by. It's one of his routine deliveries. Um, he has hard work, his generosity. I think those are the two biggest things I carry with me today and relate to the most. But physically, I have this little quarter. um, And it's attached to a little story, but I put it in my pocket when I speak because
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it's a symbol of him and reminds me of him, and so I also carry this physically.
Mm-hmm. Um, that's everything that's got you to here, and I love the parts that it's played into who you are. What's got you excited about what's coming next? What's got your attention for what's coming over the horizon for Sam?
Well, it goes back to what you were saying earlier because members of my team we're growing fast and cool things are happening, and they keep showing up on the call and saying, "We did this. Now what?" I'm like, more of the same, just better. Like, like,
I love that.
what do you mean? And I'm like, we've been putting out content consistently for 6 months. What would our reality look like if we continued it for the next 6 years? But got better each time. And that's a big part of it. It's like, let's keep doing the work, but do it better and improve and try different creative angles and take new shots. And I think that's the foundational belief behind the question you just asked. What else is getting me really excited? My next book. I've started writing a new book that bridges the gap between the work we're doing with young people to the broader marketplace. And I genuinely believe it'll be my best work yet in terms of a written work. That is super exciting. Our goal, our mission as a company is to provide families with unforgettable experiences in arena events. So imagine 20 to 40 people coming together, but it's intergenerational. It's grandparents calling their kids and their grandkids to go to a show that's half comedy, half motivation that leaves people laughing, learning, and remembering what it means to be human. So what I'm excited about is starting to do more ticketed events to work toward that. So November 12th, we have our first one in Calgary. Next year, the goal is to do one ticketed show each quarter to start like just working toward that goal. So yeah, the new book, more but better, and live events.
I love that so much. Sam, as we wrap up, I could actually talk to you forever. As we wrap this conversation up, what's some final words of wisdom from Sam for any aspiring, emerging speaker out there? What do you want to leave them with?
You are right on time. There is no timeline. Give yourself permission to have fun. Don't ever stop asking intelligent questions. Lean on your colleagues when things get difficult, and just enjoy the journey. And just enjoy the journey. You are going to look back on the moments where it was so difficult and be so proud to talk about it if you make it through the other side, when you make it through the other side. So know that every part of your journey is supposed to be the way it's unfolding for you. Look for the learnings in it and just have fun. Enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey. That's actually what I do say to people. We get to a point where they're about to go and do their first speech. I'm like, can you just like have fun with this now? Can you just like fall in love with it a little bit and enjoy it? Because that's actually the missing quotient for most people. Sam, it's been incredible to have this conversation. I've enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much for being on the Speaker Driven Business.
Thank you so much, my friend. This was so much fun.